Welcome to the Women Living Well After 50 podcast. I'm Sulon Carrick and I'm passionate about inspiring, motivating, supporting and informing women over 50 to embrace this exciting time of life. Health and wellness in mind, body and spirit are the foundations for living well, but there is so much more to a life well lived. Each week, through conversations with my guests, I'll be presenting topics that will help us all to live well and enjoy life. So join me as we discover new ways to become women living well after 50. Are you ready to start living? What are you waiting for? Let's get started. Welcome to another episode of the Women Living Well After 50 podcast. I'm Sulon Carrick and it's lovely to have you join me. Now, are you struggling to find your true calling or your path? I know that sometimes I do, and also in retirement it can be difficult to know what we're going to do with the rest of our lives. So we can spend hours ruminating on what we should be doing, what steps we should be taking, but often instead of finding answers, we just become more stressed out and anxious. My guest today is author and coach Meredith Walters, and she says that because as a culture we spend too much time trying to solve problems in our head, but our head is just one source of our innate wisdom. Our bodies are another. In her new book, This Animal Body, Meredith discusses and explores the use of our body and connecting with that wisdom that our body can provide. Reconnecting with her own body's wisdom has helped Meredith find her unique purpose and realign her career with her strengths and passions, helping to heal her anxiety and thrive. Today, we're going to be discussing the language of the body. So let's go and join the conversation. Welcome, Meredith. It's so lovely to have you join me on the Women Living Well After 50 podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here.
Now, I've just finished your latest book, This Animal Body, and I was saying to you just before we went on live that I really enjoyed the book. So I wanted you to just share a little bit about yourself with the listeners and how or why you came to write This Animal Body.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the feedback. And so there's a couple different ways I can answer that question. I'll start with a little bit of the larger story of writing, how I came to write a novel, which is that as long as I can remember, I've loved to write. When I was 8, I filled up notebook after notebook of stories. And then when I was 12, I decided I was going to write a novel. So, just with that kind of 12-year-old mind, I was just like, yeah, no big deal. I'm going to write a novel, of course. So I did, and I loved the process, and it went really easily and quickly. And I was so excited by it that I entered it into my school's book contest. And I thought everyone was going to love it as much as I did, of course. And then when I got it back, it received the second to lowest score possible. So it was really devastating, especially for my 12-year-old self that expected something totally different. So a lot happened with that. But one thing that happened was that I stopped writing. I wrote a few short stories in high school, and then I kind of gave it up completely after that. I kind of convinced myself it wasn't that important to me. I didn't really actually like it that much. Alongside this, and I don't think it was coincidental, I also began to struggle in my teen years with anxiety and depression. And so basically, to keep a long story shorter, in my 20s, starting in my mid-20s, I did a lot of healing and eventually made my way back to writing little by little. First in my coaching practice, just blogging. Then I had an idea for some short stories to put on my blog, kind of allegorical stories. And then eventually I got an idea for this novel, for This Animal Body. So it was really coming full circle when that happened, when I had that idea, and coming back from, I went from, of course I can write a novel, to I could never write a novel, to, okay, I think I can write a novel. And the way that the idea came to me was I'd been walking through some woods near my house, and I was coming home and I saw this robin this bird on the side of the road. And there was something about this bird's eyes that were just so deep and knowing and calming. And what came to mind was all of these hierarchies that we humans put ourselves at the top of. We're the smartest, the most capable, the most evolved, the most spiritual and conscious. And staring into that bird's eyes, none of that made any sense. So the idea for a story that reversed that hierarchy came to me and kept kind of coming to me. And really a lot of it was things that I wished I had known in some of the periods of my life when I had been struggling. So sharing some of that, and just also sharing my increasing sense of connection to our animal family that I feel like we as human beings have really lost and lost a lot because of.
Yes, I really enjoyed the book, and it's a little bit different, and I read it with an open mind, and the story just evolved. And I said to you before that there were so many messages that came through to me as I was reading it, and I was thinking, oh yes, and just looking at life in a different way. But just before I go on to what we're going to be talking about today, you were talking about how you had that disappointment with your first novel. And I just thought, what a shame it is, and it happens to all of us, where something we think we're going to be doing well, and it might have been good, but the reaction or the comment that you got stopped you. You started then to doubt yourself. You talked yourself out of, thinking that you could write. And, we're at such a vulnerable age at 12 years old that, I sort of think perhaps it might be handled a little bit different these days to what it was then. But that sort of put that limiting belief on yourself, which fortunately you've overcome. But we all do that, don't we? It just could be one word or a comment from someone, and if it's not a positive one, we hone in on that all the time, and that holds us back.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a part of us, at least I feel like there's a part of me, and I see it in clients as well, but there's a part of me that always is looking for, where I'm not good enough, or where I'm failing, or what I'm doing wrong. And so yeah, it can there's plenty of possible things could interpret as that. So yeah, it took me a long time, and that was a big part of my healing from depression, to learn to question that part of me and those beliefs that I wasn't good enough, and to really reinterpret some of the things, the so-called proof.
Yes. Yeah. But for some people like myself, it took me 60 years to overcome certain limiting beliefs. So it's never too late. That's
Absolutely.
one thing. But it sort of brings me to what you're talking about. Sometimes we focus too much on our mind rather than listening to our bodies. And so, when we don't know where we're going or what we want to do, and we focus so much with our mind that it just stresses it out even more, rather than listening to what you call the language of your body. And I just wanted to talk about that today, because a few notes that came through from you. It's a fascinating way to look at life and to look at the way we live. And I just wondered if we could talk about that and what you mean by the language of body to start with.
Yeah, I would love to. This is one of my favorite things to talk about, because it's been so key to both my healing in terms of depression and anxiety, and also finding my calling and my path in life and my sense of passion and purpose. My body has been really, really key. So when the language of the body, when I say that, I'm really referring to the fact that our bodies are constantly responding to our current situation and giving us lots of really rich information and guidance. It's just that we usually either aren't paying attention because we're so caught up in our thoughts, and also including our limiting beliefs. Or sometimes what happens is we don't know how to interpret what our bodies are telling us. Because I think we come into the world knowing what our bodies are saying, and really in strong connection with our bodies, and drawing on our intuition and instincts and all of that wisdom, but we just learn, we're kind of trained out of it, and then we forget. So yeah, so the language of the body is relearning, or I mean, learning the language of the body is relearning what our body is telling us through its different sensations and reactions and responses to things.
Yes, and sometimes that's quite obvious. Like I did a very long run on Saturday or Sunday. I'm preparing for an event, and I got up, I had a certain distance in mind, and I almost got there, but my body started saying to me, no, you are doing too much, stop. And it started manifesting itself in a cramp and, this and that. And I just thought, and then I thought the next day, well, I've really got to listen to my body from a physical point of view. And so I just went for a light walk, and I didn't do too much. I did some stretching. So that is probably an easy example of listening to your body, because physically it's telling you, hey, you're doing too much. But I just wondered if we could start talking about the different steps that you have, because you say that you can learn the language of your body, starting with how it says yes and how it says no. So how do you do that?
Yeah, would love to share that. I just want to say, yeah, absolutely. Our body, sometimes it is obvious. Sometimes we still ignore it because it's inconvenient, or we don't really, we have this idea about what we should be doing, and so nothing's going to dissuade us. So
exactly.
I think what happens, what happens is we override it a lot, what our bodies are telling us, and then it starts to get quieter and quieter, and then we just don't even notice it anymore.
And can I just get you to hold that thought? Because yes, in the past, I would have pushed through and probably then done some damage. But, because I was thinking, oh, I'm going to fail because I set this distance and I didn't quite get there. I mean, I got 75% of the way. Instead of looking at that way in the past, I might have looked at it, I've failed. So, it is very much about letting go of, the expectations we put on ourselves as well. But sorry to interrupt you there. We'll talk again about the, saying yes and no.
Yeah, no, it's a great point though, because I think part of the trick of listening to the body is there's a humility and willingness to let go and to surrender, which is really hard. I mean, that's probably there's the technical skills of knowing how your body says yes and no, and that's one thing. The harder part is probably actually listening and trusting and being willing to let go of whatever else we think should be happening. And yeah, I could say more about that later, but I want to go back to your original question, which was how the body says yes and how it says no and how we can know. So I have an exercise that I do with clients that comes, it's based in part on Martha Beck's book, Finding Your Own North Star. She has a similar exercise, and then I kind of took that and adapted it and ran with it. But basically the idea is that you create your kind of best case scenario and then your worst case scenario. So, and I actually do it in the opposite order because I like to end on the best case scenario. So starting with like, what's the worst day you can imagine? And, nothing horrific, nobody dying, nothing on that level, but just kind of the most stressful day filled with the people you don't like, the things you don't like, the activities you don't like, in the place you don't like. And then you kind of imagine that day and just imagine yourself in it, and then notice what happens in your body and what are the sensations that you feel and where, so do you feel a tightness in your chest or a heaviness in your belly, or does your throat constrict? Or you can notice your posture too, do you hunch over, or do your shoulders get tight, or whatever? There's lots of different ways it can manifest. But whatever happens in your body as you're imagining that, those are great clues to how your body says no. And then conversely, you can construct your best day, a place you love to be, people you love to be with, activities you love to do, things you really enjoy that energize you, that excite you. So if you kind of construct your ideal situation there, imagine yourself in it, and then see what happens in your body. And again, what are the specific sensations you feel? And this is where it can be tricky. Sometimes it takes a little time to really notice the sensation. So sometimes it can be helpful just to make a list of sensation words, because I'll often ask people, so what sensations do you notice in your body? And they're like, well, I'm happy, and that's great. we're getting closer, and that's not a sensation. So where do you feel the happiness? So sensation words, is it hot, cold? Is it heavy, light? Does it feel tense or relaxed? Or is there a sense of movement or tingling or even numbness? There's a lot of different types of sensations, but really getting to that level. And so again, those are in your best day, the responses in your body are how your body says yes.
And I think that one point that I was just listening to you then, we do need to make the time to do this, don't we? A lot of people will say, well, I'm not happy where I am, or life just isn't, the way I want it to be. But if we don't put the initial work in to find out why, as you say, writing down the sensations, it's no good just saying, oh yeah, I want to learn the language of your body, and then just not doing the work. We do have to do that work if we want to have, make the changes that we want to in our life. So I think that's the thing where sometimes we don't give ourselves the time to just sit and examine and reflect and so forth.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I think a lot of times people feel, and I've felt this way in the past too, where we feel overwhelmed and stuck, and like nothing we do is working to change something. And it's amazing how many times we haven't really taken the time to really observe what's going on closely. And so it's one of those things where it's hard to make the time, but it also offers this hope, because it means that things, if you haven't made the time, means that there's probably things that will shift and possibilities that will open up once you do. And it doesn't have to be a lot of time either. What I recommend people doing after they get a sense of how their body says yes and how it says no is reflecting for the next couple of weeks and just pausing, if you can 3 times a day. The more frequently you do it, the easier it is to remember. But if you can't, just once a day is fine. But just noticing back, when in the time period since my last reflection did I notice elements of my yes body? What's my best sense of what my body was saying yes to? When did I notice elements of my no body? What's my best sense of what my body was saying no to? And if you do that for just 2 weeks, 1 to 3 times a day, and you don't have to spend a lot of time, but just, spending a few minutes reflecting, jotting down what comes up, it's amazing how much information you get, and how much clarity, and it really pinpoints, oh, these are the things that really I would need to shift to feel more fulfilled or happy, or a greater sense of meaning, or these are the things that are going really well, that really enliven me, that I want more of in my life. It doesn't take a lot of time to do that, but it does take some dedication.
And I think, it's all about being self-aware, isn't it? And sometimes, we do need the help of someone like yourself, who's a coach, who can just help get us on track, maybe hold us a little bit accountable if we check in every week or something, and gives us a plan to work with, so that we're not thinking, oh, I don't really know where to start, I don't know what to do. Whereas you were saying before, with a client who might say, I'm feeling happy, and that we might stop at that. But as a coach, you're saying, well, okay, you're happy, but how does that translate to how your body's feeling? So you're helping to guide us into that direction. So if people are really struggling to do it on their own, it's a great idea to reach out to someone like yourself, and even if it's just for a few sessions, just to get going.
Yeah, definitely. It's really helpful to have the help of other people. I mean, we're social animals. We're wired to do things in groups. So that's what I tell myself anytime I feel bad, I can't do something myself. There are a lot of things I can't do myself. So yeah, absolutely. It's really helpful to have other people, and a coach or someone with a little more experience can ask those deeper questions and take it to another level, and can also help with, I think anytime we try something new, that self-doubt and those limiting beliefs come up. And so it's really, those can really dissuade us and shut us down pretty quickly and get us to give up. And so it can be helpful to have someone who can help you kind of spot those and encourage you and help you see what you're doing well. Everyone's going to get stumped at some point. So, and the language of the body, it goes beyond yes and no, and there's some nuances and some things that are a little harder to discern. And so, yeah, everyone's going to get stumped at some point. So it's good to have someone who can help this is normal and part of the process, and here's how you get around that or move through that challenge. And just having the space, creating like regular space and time and structure is really helpful, in addition to the accountability that you said.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're more inclined to do it if you've made an appointment with someone like yourself. And if you say, well, okay, I'm going to set aside 2 o'clock today to do it, you might start and you think, oh, it's all a bit too hard, and move on. So we've sort of talked about what the language of the body is. And you talk about practice moving your attention from the brain to your body. So can we have a little chat about that?
You mean just in terms of how we move from the brain to the body, or?
Yeah, like the brain and the thoughts moving to your body, and then perhaps with a body scan or something like that.
Yeah, body scan is a great one. Yeah, I find it really helpful to, so in addition to doing that reflection, which over time can become more natural, so you don't have to, set aside first, sometimes it requires setting an alarm on your phone to remember to do it. Eventually, it can become something you do more naturally and kind of just organically. In the moment, you just start to remember to check in with your body at different points throughout the day. But in addition to that, I do find it really helpful. There's some practices that help us. Anything that helps us shift our attention away from our thoughts and into our bodies is great. So body scan is a really helpful one. And the body scan has the additional benefit of helping us learn more of the sensations in our body. So everyone's body is different. So I get to learn, what happens in all the different ways my belly can feel, or all the different ways my big toe can feel, so it has that benefit. And then there are other ones too. Yoga can be great if it's used again, if you're noticing as you're moving your body when you're caught in your thoughts, and just bringing your attention back to the sensations in your body as you're moving or holding the poses. That can be another good one. One of my favorite ones, because I'm really big on connection to the natural world, is obvious through my book, is what I call a sit spot meditation. So just going outside and paying attention to your senses, kind of one at a time. What am I seeing? And what am I hearing? What am I smelling? And just going through them. And so that's the object of your attention. And when you notice that you're absorbed in your thoughts again, you just bring it back to whatever sense you're paying attention to. So yeah, anything like that is really, really helpful for developing our capacity to be more in our bodies.
And like when yesterday I went for a walk, and we're in winter at the moment over here, but it was such a beautiful day. The sky was crisp and blue and clear, and the leaves were really green, and the birds were around, and I was power walking along, and then I thought, just stop for a minute and take in this absolutely gorgeous day, nature, everything. And it just changes your whole attitude when you do that, doesn't it? You could be worrying about something, but the moment you stop and just, immerse yourself in nature and this beautiful, it was just such a beautiful day. I couldn't help feeling uplifted. Yeah. So I think that is a great idea about your outdoor meditation.
That's so lovely. Yeah, so lovely. And so absolutely true. I mean, part of my point in this animal body and with the title is our body, we have animal bodies, right? We are animals. Human beings are animals. And our bodies are designed, they evolved to be out in the natural world. And I think a lot of the modern life can feel really stressful on our bodies, but we don't even notice because we've grown up with it. And it's like, fish with water. It's how it is. But when we go in the natural world, I think our bodies on some level can relax, and our nervous systems can relax or be uplifted, like you're saying. And it's where our bodies are designed to be. So there's a lot of healing that can happen with that. So I love that story.
Yeah, because as I said, I'm a runner, so I usually get I'm either running with a friend and we're chatting, or, you're focusing on going a distance and you tend to forget what's around you. And so I find that even with that, sometimes we might stop to get a quick drink at a bubbler or something, and I'll just stop and look around and say, wow, look at even the city, even, you know, with the buildings and that. The other morning we were out early and the sun was shining on all the windows, the glass in the buildings, and it just looked beautiful. So it's a matter of just, even whatever you're doing, just stopping and appreciating.
Yeah, there's so much available, so much beauty available, and so many moments that we miss because we're in our heads all the time and we're somewhere else thinking about the past or the future. So yeah, if we can just stop and notice what's around, there's so many gifts available in that.
Mm-hmm. And before we move on, I just wondered, for those, some people, well, most people would probably know what a body scan is, but could you just describe perhaps what we should do if we want to do the body scan?
Yeah, so the basic idea of a body scan is that you're focusing on different parts of your body at a time. And like any of the kind of meditations, it's you just have an object of focus, so that when you notice you're in your thoughts and you're not in the present moment and you're thinking about, you know, past or future, you bring your attention back to the object of focus. And in the body scan, it's a part of your body. Usually it starts in the toes and you kind of work your way up different parts of the body into the top of your head. And there's a lot of guided meditations, guided body scans that you can find in lots of different apps or just on YouTube. You know, you can just search. There's a lot of them available for free. And I find there's so many different people doing them, and you just listen until you find one that resonates for you. People have different styles. But yeah, it can be helpful to have that guidance through. And I just want to say one more thing. Oh, sorry. Is it?
No, you go. You go.
Well, I just wanted to say one more thing about connecting with the body, which is that often old feelings are kind of present in the body. The body carries things from the past, and so it can sometimes be overwhelming for some folk, especially if people are sensitive and feel things deeply. Bringing your attention to the body can be hard at times. And so I just want to say that can happen, and it's not a sign that anything is wrong or there's something wrong with you. It just means there's something in there that wants attention, really, and kind of gentle, loving, compassionate attention. And so in that case, I would definitely recommend having somebody else, whether it's a trusted friend or family member or a therapist or coach, but somebody who can help make space to feel the bigness of whatever is in your body. It just wants to be felt usually and move through. But just to say that can happen.
And I suppose that's a little bit like pushing thoughts away that you don't want to feel or think about. It's not, what's the word I'm grasping for, but not sort of acknowledging how your body is feeling because of, you know, you just don't want to face it for some reason. As you say, there's that deeper underlying thing, which I think might bring us to the point about the difference between fear and an actual no, and or habitual reactions. I'm just reading from your notes here. And a yes. I wondered if we could talk about that.
Yeah, so that's what I was referring to when I talked about the nuances and the kind of harder aspects of the language of the body. Sometimes things can feel similar. So fear in the body often feels like a tightening, and a no in the body often feels like a tightening. So it can be easy to confuse them. And sometimes people will think their body is saying no to something, but they're really just afraid of it. So there's no quick and easy foolproof, you know, like this means it's fear. This means it's your no body. This is really something people have to explore for themselves and over time kind of learn through trial and error. And there's some kind of clues you can use. So for fear often feels dire, like, you know, everything's going to be lost or urgent. We got to deal with this right now. Or anything that has, you know, like the flavor of I'm a terrible person, I'm going to fail, or anything like that. Like there's a different flavor to the fear energy. Whereas a no from the body is much different. So if I'm thinking about, you know, do I want to take this new job, and I'm listening to my body, checking in with my body, if it feels like, oh my God, there's so much, you know, I could lose everything, you know, or I could be totally stuck for the rest of my life. That's the flavor of fear. Whereas no is going to be more like, yeah, not this, not this, you know, you could do it. That's usually how it feels. Like you could, but it's not going to be, you're not going to like it, kind of like, it's not going to be what we're looking for. So there's a very different quality to the no versus the fear. And
yeah, and how do you, I mean, what are some ways we can overcome that fear? Because that's, you know, something that affects us all. There's no one that never has never feared something. And for some people, it could be really major. And, you know, for everybody, it's different, and it can be overwhelming no matter how small it might be or how big. So how do you sort of guide your clients through overcoming those fears?
Yeah. And I just want to reiterate your point that everyone feels fear. I think when I was younger, I thought I was the only one that had so much fear and self-doubt and everything. And then as I started to work with more and more people, I realized even the people who come across as so confident and fearless, they have all kinds of fear. It's just, they're just different than mine and they show up differently. So yeah, it's good to remember we do all have fear. And so fear is a really interesting thing. For me, it comes up for a reason. So it's not something we need to just power through. That doesn't really work anyway, or ignore. It has a message. It has something for us. And so I find that when we sit down with it, and I didn't come up with this, I can't remember where I read it, but this idea of like having a cup of tea with it, with the part of you that's afraid. I really love that because it's just this gentle curiosity, like, okay, so what's going on? Usually my experience is that fear has something it wants us to be aware of. So one way of working with it is to look for what I call the grain of truth and then the false conclusion. So usually with fear, there's a grain of truth. Otherwise, it wouldn't hook us in. So I'm 6 feet tall. If someone tells me I'm too short, it does not bother me. I'm not worried about it.
No.
I'm pretty clear that's not the case, right? So, but if there's a grain of truth in it, that's what hooks me. So if I have a fear about, you know, I'm going to be miserable if I don't know, take this job or make this decision, make the wrong decision. There is the truth, the grain of truth might be that there may be some suffering if I do this, some pain, you know, there might be some challenges in this path or some pain in this path. The false conclusion, or say it's writing a novel, like I'm afraid to send my novel out to, you know, agents or publishers or whoever I'm sending it to. The grain of truth might be that, yeah, not everyone's going to like it. There are going to be people that really don't like it. The grain of truth might be that very few people will like it. You know, that's possible. But the false conclusion, there's many, many false conclusions. So I might be thinking that, therefore, that means I'm a terrible writer. Therefore, that means that, you know, everyone's going to laugh at me. Therefore, that means that I shouldn't do this. Therefore, that means there's nothing good in this. And none of those are true. If we can sort through the grain of truth, it kind of helps us prepare for something and know, okay, this is possible. This could be true. And I want to. There's also usually something that the fear is trying to protect. So in that case, it's probably trying to protect my sense of myself as, you know, a capable and good person. And so I can protect that. I can know, okay, so going into this process, I need to tend to my sense of myself as a capable, good person with something to offer the world. Because I do, even if only a few people like what I put out there, it's still worthwhile and it's still valuable. And the world probably needs it. That's my sense. If something comes to us creatively, the world needs it, even if it's only a small, you know, a small group.
Yes, and sometimes, you know, that self-belief is difficult to, you know, accept. And also, I think we worry too much about what other people think and what they're going to say. And so we don't take that step. And I use this podcast, I've mentioned it often, that, you know, I started it I did a lot of things in my 60s because I finally, you know, got to the point where I thought, well, I really want to try this, and what's the worst that can happen? But with the podcast, that wasn't easy for me to chat to people, and it's not something that you know, once I'm into it, I'm okay. But there were a lot of self-doubts, and people were saying, well, why do you want to do this? Why do you want to do that? And I just felt it was something that I wanted to do for myself first. And then if I could reach 1 or 2 people and help those women by introducing them to women like yourselves who are inspiring and motivating, then that would make me feel good. But it doesn't mean that sometimes I don't get on here and think, I don't know how I'm going to do this today. I've got to, you know, push through. But once you do, you know, it can open up so many opportunities and learnings. And I think that, as I said, we worry too much about what other people think, and that's a natural tendency. And we have to also, I think, accept that not everyone is going to like us. You know, we're not going to be friends with everybody in the world, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with us. It's just that we don't connect in certain ways.
Yeah, yeah. And to me, that's the gift of that fear, right? Is it can point out the truth. Not everyone's gonna like it. So you're not going into it believing everybody, like when I was 12, going into it believing everyone's gonna like this. You can come into it with a much more realistic expectation, and know that it's also not about you or the quality and value of what you're putting out there. That it's just that human beings are so different. Nothing's gonna resonate with everybody, and everybody has such distinct needs and views that it's just about finding the people who need what you have to offer. So yeah, I think that there's a real gift in the fear that helps us refocus away from our egos that are, you know, just, I want everybody to love it. Of course, my ego wants everybody to love what I do. But I don't have to run with that, you know, the fear helps me recalibrate and know, okay, well, the important part is actually the impact that I'm having, that I'm, you know, making other people, helping other people, or making myself happier and more fulfilled, and kind of doing, you know, doing good things, contributing whatever I can, whatever size that is, however good or bad. I want to be with someone who just contributes everything I can, you know, no matter how good it is. It's what I have. So I'm going to try to give it. So fear can help us do that, I think.
So we're coming towards the end of our conversation, Meredith, but I've got a question that I ask every guest, which I'll just park for the moment. Have we covered everything that you'd like to talk today, or are there any points that we haven't really touched on with the language of learning the language of our body?
I think I appreciate you asking that. It's a great question. And the only thing that comes to mind is just, I think the language of the body, we can learn a lot from wild beings, because the language, you know, they rely a lot more on their body wisdom than we do. They don't have all the thoughts and brain capacity that we do. I mean, they have some of that, but not in the same way that we do. So they are much more connected to their body. So I'm a big fan of just sitting in the natural world and observing wild animals and wild beings, because I think they can tell us a lot about how to tune into and sense the wisdom of our bodies.
And yeah, I just want to go back to that example you gave about seeing the bird. And it is, if you just go with any animal, like, you know, if you just take a moment to observe them, you really can connect, and usually with the eyes, isn't it? You know, we've got, even my daughter has a little dog, and she comes over, and while she's not a wild, you know, living out in the wild, she just looks up at you, and you can really see that connection that you have, and you start talking, and that's the same thing. And I find birds in particular, you know, you can look at them, and they tend to really have that piercing look and looking right into your soul. So that's good. But look, it's been wonderful to have you as my guest today, and I've really enjoyed our conversation. So before we go, I'd like to ask you a question. And as I said, I ask this of all my guests. What does being a woman living well mean to you?
It's a really good question. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's about living from a place that's deeper than my willfulness or what I think I should be doing or accomplishing in my kind of logical, rational brain. It's living from a place where I'm sensing what is it that wants to come through me? What is it that wants to be created? What is it that wants to be offered to the world? And then offering what I can for the greater, as best I can, for the greater good. And with lots of connection to the other beings around me, whether they're human beings or animal beings or, you know, other natural beings, just having a lot of rich connection with them, and with that deeper part of myself, what I think of as below my ego, my true nature, who I really am at the core. So lots and lots of connection for me.
Mm. And it's such, when you talk about that, I just think of the word peaceful and calm. You
Mm.
know, it doesn't mean that you're not going to have challenges in your life, but I think that, you know, when you do connect with nature and following your philosophies, it does give me that those two words come to me, peaceful and calm. So that's
Yeah,
something we can all strive for, especially in this busy world.
definitely. There's so many things that are going to knock us off balance, but it's, for me, it's important to have a place I can come back to. And it does have that feel for me too. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Meredith. I'll be putting all the links to your in the show notes, and also the link for the book, This Animal Body. I know you've written other books as well, but this is the one that I've just finished, and I would highly recommend it. Not just from the story, which was you know, that it was a good fictional or story, but just the lessons, or the, you know, the messages that I was getting throughout the book, which, you know, were really helpful. So thanks again for joining me today, and it's been lovely to chat to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I'm so grateful to have been able to have it with you. So thanks so much.
Well, that was a great conversation that I had with Meredith today about learning the language of our body. We sometimes spend too much time up here in our thoughts rather than listening to what our body is telling us. So I hope you've enjoyed the conversation today. I encourage you to share this with your friends, because I'm sure that they will get some value out of my conversation with Meredith today, and also to look for her book, This Animal Body, which I really enjoyed. Well, that's it for this episode. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation, and until next time, remember to live well, enjoy life, and most of all, be a woman living life your way. Bye for now.